we're going to be doing a Bible study. So, if those of you who are watching this after the live stream has already ended, if you want to go ahead and watch the previous stream where we went through Exodus 1 to 2. Now we're going to be we're going to be starting off with Exodus 3 this time. So, if you want to, go ahead and grab your Bibles, follow along if you want to. Feel free to post any comments you want, and we will just jump right in. So this is the story of the burning bush. So, Caleb, would you like to start?
Sure. I'll just read the first 5 chapters. Maybe I'll go further.
Okay.
Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, and the priest of Midian. And he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see God, called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground.
So,
and he said,
we'll leave it up because 5 verses. So, that in my opinion, it's kind of crazy because Moses right now, for like context, if you haven't watched a previous stream, Moses right now is grown up and he's hiding away from, and he's like wandering in the desert because he's hiding away from the Egyptian kingdom because he killed one of the people who was there. So he's trying to hide away, and all of a sudden he just out of the wilderness he sees this angel the angel of the Lord that appears to him, and it's in this flame, in this fire, and then all of a sudden he hears this voice, and God is talking to him and calling out, Moses, Moses, and the bush did not burn. It just was on fire, and that's the fire of the Lord, and that's pretty great. Caleb, anything else to say?
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. It's one of the best stories in the Bible. We're going to hear it. Like, Moses, he's terrified right now. He has no idea why God called him.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then I'll end off. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and bring them up out of that land, and a good and broad land, and a land flowing with milk and honey, a place of the Canaanites and the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, and you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So it's this huge, epic command that God's giving right now to Moses. And it's also just another reminder that he's always with us, because he's saying, I have seen your suffering. I have seen your oppression, and I will guide you out of it. Anything else to say, Caleb?
Yeah, so it's just this, like, massive command that Moses has got, and he's like, what? He's, like, shocked. He's, like, has no idea what to do, because he thinks he's nothing. He thinks he did some terrible stuff. When really, he really hasn't done anything wrong, actually. He's just kind of been on the high. God's calling him out. This is his kind of calling.
Oh, yeah, and people in the chat, if you have any questions, we'll definitely answer them. We're just going through Exodus right now, so we're just reading. If you want to follow along in your Bibles, we're at Exodus 3:11 is where we're starting off next. So just God's giving this...
part of the Bible, though, so...
Yeah.
Like, if you have a question in another part, that's fine, too.
Yeah. And then we'll go ahead. Caleb, you want to read off starting at verse 11?
Sure. Let me see, I'm finding that. But Moses said to God, "Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" He said, "But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign of you, that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." Then Moses said to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say then?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say this to the people of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" God also said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel, 'The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations.'"
And how crazy is that? That like it also says it in all caps because it's one of the most like iconic things in the Bible where God speaks to Moses. This whole story is super iconic, and it shows like God says all caps, "I am who I am," and that's super cool. And it shows like it's confusing too because if we really like want to dig deep into that, it's kind of hard to understand really what that means and what it's saying, but it's just cool how God is like really speaking to Moses in this moment. Um, Caleb.
Yeah, so God is essentially saying with this that, like, everyone else has followed me. They should know who I am. Moses, don't be afraid. Go out there. Moses just giving excuses, obviously. But God turns some just lame excuses into one of the best parts of the entire Bible. So I think that's just really cool.
And it's cool because God is choosing now to lift up one of his weakest. Because as you can see, Moses is scared. And as anyone would be. See, but it's cool because God chose Moses, even though Moses was super scared and he didn't know what was gonna happen. He was really, really scared and he didn't want to do it. God chose him because he knew I have a plan for you. I have a plan for you. So people in the chat, that shows you that God is always having a plan for you. Okay, should I read the next verse, or Caleb, do you have anything to say?
No, you summed it up. Let's go.
All right, next verse, starting off at verse 16, for those of you following along in your Bibles. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, "The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt. I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt and the land of Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land of flowing with milk and honey. And they will listen to your voice. And the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, and now please let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless you have compelled by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders, and I will do it, and after that he will let you go." So that is giving like, so it's a lot because it shows, it's just so detailed, so epic in this moment. God saying, "I will take you to the land flowing with milk and honey, and I will take you out of your oppression." And it shows that, like, right here in verse 20, it says, "I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. After that, he will let you go." So this is showing that God said he will let you go, and so that just gives Israel like a huge amount of hope. Caleb, anything else to say?
Yeah, I'd like to quickly just address the entire Old Testament. I know some people don't believe this is important at all, and that we're just reading some random nonsense, but this is very important. The Old Testament happened before Jesus, correct? But it still shows like how life was, and how we got to where we are, and why we are, who we are, why we sin. So I just want to quickly just say that it's very important, and that I think that everyone honestly should read the Old Testament. It's most of the Bible, so you can't just ignore it.
Yeah. Okay. And then Caleb, do you want to finish up this story with the last two verses, and then we'll talk about the whole chapter?
All right, yeah, that works. "And I will give the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and when you go, you shall not go empty. But each woman shall ask for her neighbor, and any woman who lives in her house, for silver and gold jewelry, and for clothing you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, so you shall plunder the Egyptians. So I don't exactly know what that meant right there. Mike could probably help me. I think what it's talking about is taking jewelry from the Egyptians so they have like wealth to go out. But Micah, if you want to correct me on that,
Yeah. So, I think my interpretation: you shall put them on your sons and daughters, that you shall plunder the Egyptians. Each woman shall ask of her neighbor and anyone who lives in her house. I don't know. I think it's kind of just adding to the fact of how the Israelites will be above the Egyptians and they will be free and they are the chosen kingdom. So, just to recap the whole chapter, this was all about the burning bush. The burning bush is a huge story in the Bible, and it's where it's a huge checkpoint, I guess, in the Bible where it shows Moses is getting told exactly what will happen, and it's not just like a little glimpse of hope. It is concrete hope. It is proof. God is saying, I will bring you out of Egypt. I will take you from your oppression. I will save you. And so it shows that God really, really cares for us.
Yeah, as you were saying, it's a great major checkpoint in the Bible. It's really important. It shows that God cares for us, but it also does something else. It starts a trend that will happen later on in the Bible many times, where essentially the Israelites get captured, they get enslaved, they have bad times, and then they get freed by someone. And then it just happens over and over again. I think it's mostly in like Kings and Judges this happens, maybe in like after Samuel. So like really in that part of the Bible, that's when it happens. It's just this trend that keeps going. It's kind of they complain a lot about it. They stop following God, and then this is what happens. In this case, they were all loyal to God, but they would eventually, in later on in Exodus, they turn away from God because their situation isn't favorable. Well, actually, it is. But still, they view the situation as not favorable.
And after that chapter, so if anybody has any questions in the comments, we are happy to answer them. And then we'll be starting off chapter 4 of Exodus. So I guess I can start that off then. So
All right.
Moses given powerful signs is what this story is called. Then Moses answered, But behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they will say, The Lord did not appear to you. The Lord said to him, What is that in your hand? He said, A staff. And he said, Throw it on the ground. So Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. Moses ran from it, but the Lord said to Moses, Put it in your hand and catch it by the tail. So he put out his hand, and he caught it, and the staff became, it became a staff in his hand. That they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. So, just to recap.
That story is incredible. It really just shows how much God wanted him to go. He's going to do anything to get Moses to go. Moses is just here, like, trying to give every reason not to go. And God's giving it every reason to go. So,
yes, and
it's just a really fun story.
It just shows because Moses has never experienced this magic before. Because it's literally like magic. He's throwing the staff on the ground, and it's getting turned into a serpent, and he picks it up, and it's back a staff in his hand. Like, can you imagine, like, being Moses in that moment? Just in awe, like, this is, like, you would immediately know. And so God's showing, they will believe whether they will believe that the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob has spoken to you. Caleb, you want to carry off?
Yeah.
6.
We're on 6 or 5?
6.
Again, the Lord said to him, Put your hands inside your cloak. And he put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous, like snow. Leprous, yeah, like snow. Then God said, Put your hand back inside your cloak. So he put his hand back inside his cloak. And when he took it out, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. If they will not believe you, God said, or listen to you first. Verse 9, they may believe the later sign. If they will not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it on dry ground, and the water that you shall take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. But Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I slow of speech and of tongue. All right, so as you can see, this portion of like the Bible, or I guess just Exodus 4, is just talking about Moses getting more and more reasons to go. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And these are really cool, by the way. Like, some of these things are like unfathomable to us today.
Yeah, because God's showing Moses this magic right before his hands. His hand is going into his cloak, and it's turning into this leprous, and then he takes it out, and it's clean, and it's just amazing. And also, I'd like to look back at maybe a little bit in the previous chapter when God's calling to Moses, because I have this little part in my Bible that says that wonders why did God call himself I am. And also before that, if any of you in the comments have any questions at all, it doesn't even have to be on this subject, go ahead and put them in the comments and we will answer them. And also new people, we are in Exodus 4 right now. So why did God call himself I am? The Hebrew name Yahweh is regarded as so sacred that the Jewish people would not say it. In English, it is often translated to Lord, but it means one who always is. God is forever living and active, and he needs nothing outside himself. Jesus refers to him as I am, describing his relationship with the Father. So it shows that I am everything. And so it's just so powerful, and it's so we want to. Caleb, do you have anything to say?
No, just continue on the verse, okay? I'm gonna mute myself. I'll be back in a second. Sorry.
Okay. So then moving on to verse 11. Then the Lord said to him, Who has made the man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now, therefore, go, and I will be in your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. But he said, O Lord, please send someone else. Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is there not Aaron, your brother the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be in your mouth. And with this mouth I will teach you both what to do. So in this verse, God's really showing, or in this portion, God's really showing Moses that I will be with you every step of the way. Every single step of the way. I will never leave your side, and I have never left your side ever. I have always been by your side. I have always been with you, and I will be there. And God's showing him that I will be guiding you the entire way. I know what I'm asking you to do is difficult, but I know you can do it because I will always be with you. So that is just a really powerful verse. And it's not just Moses that God is always with. God is always with each and every single one of us. So that's just another takeaway from this portion. Caleb, do you have any other things?
Yeah, I'd like to say on your last part that, like, when you say God is with everyone, that is totally true.
Mm-hmm.
God, even if you're not Christian, God is with you. Okay, He loves everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You could be break so many sins. You could be a horrible person in the eyes of everyone, and not be a righteous person in the eyes of God, and God will still love you. His love is never ending. And don't forget, that's the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
His love is never ending. But that can be taken wrongly too. You have to remember, sin is still a thing. God doesn't like sin, but He loves you.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember that.
So then moving on to verse.
What verse?
Yeah, actually, I'm just actually gonna quickly finish this, and then you can start off at verse 18, because that's a new story. So,
All right.
He shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be in your mouth, and shall be as God to him. And take in your hand this staff, which you shall do the signs. So just saying, God's just telling him, do this, commanding you. Then moving on to Moses returns to Egypt. Caleb, you want to read verse 18?
Okay, I'll start it off. Moses went back to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, "Please let me go back to my brothers in Egypt to see whether they are still alive." And Jethro said to Moses, "Go in peace." And the Lord said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all the men who are speaking your life are dead." So Moses took his wife and his sons and had them ride on a donkey and went back to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the staff of God in his hand. And the Lord said to Moses, "When you go back to Egypt, see that you do before Pharaoh all the miracles that I have put in your power. But I will harden his heart, so that he will not let people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, 'Thus say the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son. And I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve. If you refuse to let him go, behold, I will kill your firstborn son.' At the lodging place on the way, the Lord met him and sought to put him to death." All right, so that's just the beginning of Moses coming back and what he's going to do. He's going to do all these miracles that God gave him the power to do, and he's going to show Pharaoh to let my people go. But God is going to harden Pharaoh's heart here.
And God's showing that this Israel is my firstborn son. I love Israel like my firstborn son. And it's showing just how much God cares for us. He loves us like a son. And so that is so amazing. And it shows that I will fight just like I would fight for my own son, and that's what God's saying. And he's saying, if you harm my firstborn son and you don't let him go, I will kill yours. And so that is just a huge moment. It's showing that God has this amazing love for us, and he will do anything for us. And so that just shows how much God is chasing after you and loving you, no matter what. So
yeah. One more key detail before we start reading the next parts. When God says he loves Israel, like, it's his most favorite, that's not talking about the individuals. He loves everyone equally. But it's talking about the nation itself, because that's the chosen people. They're going to restore, the world to righteousness.
And it's also like adding to this huge theme of how the last will be first, because it's showing how Israel is coming out of this oppression and being risen up to the height. And it shows that no matter what, God is always with us. So then starting off at verse 25, then Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and touched Moses' feet and with it and said, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me." So he let him alone, and it was with that she said, "A bridegroom of blood," because of the circumcision. And the Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the wilderness to meet Moses." So he went and met him in the mountain of God and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord which he had sent him to speak, and all the signs that he had commanded him to do. And then Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the people of Israel. Oh, and Aaron spoke all the words of the Lord that had been spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. So Moses is he's not doing this alone. He's doing this with Aaron, because he meets Aaron, which is his brother. So he's doing this with Aaron, and he meets him up on the mountain of God, and he shows everything. So they're both doing this together. So it shows that even if God wasn't enough, God gives Moses another helper. So that's just really nice.
God is giving every reason to Moses to do this. And Moses is finally doing this. He's finally agreeing to go out and, ask Pharaoh to let his people go. And this is God saying it's finally being set into play. Now, there is a part in the Bible, I think it's in Joshua and late Exodus, where actually the plan doesn't work out. This generation does not make it to the promised land. They don't. Because they're unfaithful. They start worshiping idols. They're not great. Even Moses doesn't make it. He messes up a miracle, and God decides that he's not worthy either. This just goes to show that even good, or quote-unquote good people, there are no good people, actually. Everyone that's fallen short of the glory of God can make mistakes.
Mhm.
Righteous people make mistakes.
All right, so now, actually, I probably should have read these last two verses again. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then Caleb can start off with verse 5.
31.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna read these last two, 30, 31, then you can
Yeah.
start chapter 5. So 30 and 31. Aaron spoke all the words to the Lord that he had spoken to Moses and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. And when they had heard the Lord and had visited the people of Israel, that he had seen their affliction, they bowed down their heads and worshipped. So this is working. It's working. Whatever God is doing is working. So
like
God
he usually does, because he's God.
And it shows that God's plan never fails. No matter how absurd it may seem, God's plan never fails. So now, verse 5.
Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "Thus say the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Now I'm going to stop right there. That line right there is probably one of the most famous lines in the entire Bible. Exodus has a lot of those, but just that right there is very crucial.
And people in the chat, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We will answer. And if you're following along in your Bible, we are at chapter 5, just starting off.
I'll reread that and just get in the flow. Afterwards, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "Thus say the Lord, the people of God, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." But Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord? Who is this Lord?" Yeah, the Lord. "That I should obey his voice and let Israel go. I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go." Then he said, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go. A 3 days journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. But the king of Egypt said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people away from their work? Get back to your burdens." And Pharaoh said, "Behold, the people of the land are now many, and you make the rest from their burdens." So they finally put this into action. They finally, go to Pharaoh, tell him to let his people go, and as expected, Pharaoh says no.
Mm-hmm.
What's a good story without the first tribe element? And this is gonna happen many more times, and there's gonna be many more curses that happen.
Yeah, because if you're thinking about Pharaoh, he's like, I have all of these slaves, and it's kind of sad because like I have all of these slaves. Why would I just let them go when this just random guy is coming up and telling me to let them go? Why would I care? So it's not super convincing, even though, but it will get really convincing. So it's gonna get really intense. I can start off at verse 6. If Caleb, do you have anything to say?
Before you start off, I'd just like to say that, yeah, that's true. It's going to get extraordinarily convincing. But still, Pharaoh, his heart is really hard right now. He does not want to do that. He just wants to keep his force, his worker force or whatever, his free labor. And it's really, really odd because there's a lot of signs telling you, hey, let them go. But he just won't. He's not giving up on this.
Yeah,
so
and his power is just going to go down and down and down. So keep watching to find out how that happens. So Then I'll start off at verse 6. This is where it gets pretty big. The same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people of their foremen, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks, as in the past. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But the number of bricks that they made in the past you shall impose on them, and you shall by no means reduce it, for they are idle." Therefore they cry, "Let us go and offer sacrifice to our God. Let the heavier work be laid on the men, that they may labor at it and pay no regard to lying words." So the taskmasters and the foremen said of the people went out and said to the people, "Thus the Pharaoh, I will not give you straw." So that's where Pharaoh is making a big mistake, because he's just digging himself in a deeper and deeper hole. He is making it harder on the Israelites now. He's saying, "Now I'm not going to give you straw. You're going to have to go collect it for yourself. And we're not going to give you any credit for not making as many bricks."
Yeah, another thing to note about this is that this is really ancient history, by the way. This is covering some, this is before, I think even Greece was a big thing. The ancient Greek stories, this is before them. So this is a very, very long time ago. This is, extreme long ago, and I think most scholars, people would agree that the pharaoh who was doing this was Ramses. So that's just important to know historical facts about this Exodus, because the Bible is rooted in history a lot. It brings kind of history, philosophy, and God together in one book. It kind of just gets everything correct, and it's a really beautiful book. So.
And I also have another mini story in my Bible, which is saying, why is it a hardship for the Israelites to gather their own straw? Why does it seem that difficult? And the overseers had supplied the straw for the Israelites to use when making bricks. When Moses asked Pharaoh to allow the Israelites to take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to worship God, Pharaoh increased their workload. They now had to gather their own straw and still made the same number of bricks each day. The effect was that the Israelites grumbled against Moses, exactly as Pharaoh had hoped. But Pharaoh did not know of God's plans. So the whole idea was to turn the Israelites against Moses and make them for Pharaoh, which is completely evil. So that's just so...
That's not a good idea. That's bad.
And people in the comments, if you want to place any questions in the chat, we will definitely answer them. If you're following along in your Bibles, we are at Exodus 5:10. Or Exodus 5:11. So
I'm gonna quickly jump ahead though. Jump ahead. We're not gonna go anywhere in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say that what is happening here is celebrated by Jesus. So the stuff happening in this book is relevant in the times of Jesus. So that's just more reason why Exodus is such an important chapter, and the Old Testament is still important.
Mm-hmm. All right, you want to start off at verse 11 then?
I'll continue. Yes. Give me a second. "Go and get your straw yourselves, whenever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced in the least." So the people were scattered throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters were urgent, saying, "Complete your work, your daily task each day." As when there was straw, and the foremen of the people of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and were asked, "Why have you not done all your tasks of making bricks today and yesterday, as in the past?" Then the foreman of the people of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, "Why do you treat your servants like this?"
So, wait,
Yeah,
that's,
you
yeah.
talk.
Yeah, so so what this is saying is basically the people are just having to work harder and harder, and Pharaoh's even teasing them, saying, "Hey, why haven't you made as many bricks as you had?" Or because he's literally making it harder on them. And it's just so rude, it's so evil, and the true mind behind this is Satan, because he's the one who's trying to convince Pharaoh to do all these bad things. So really, in our lives, we need to watch out for Satan trying to tell us to do stuff that we're not supposed to be doing.
Something to know about Satan is that we often just see him as this guy, a red guy with a pitchfork and horns, who's not the smartest, he just does evil stuff. That's totally wrong. Satan is a fallen angel. He's extraordinarily smart. he's finding he will do anything to stop God's plan from happening. It almost never works.
But he's not as smart as God. Okay, so I'm going to finish this up real quick because we have about like 2 minutes left. I don't want to hold you guys over for too much time. So starting off, verse 16. No straw is given to your servants, yet they say to us, make bricks. And behold, your servants are beaten, but the fault is in your own people. But he said, you are idle, and that is why you say, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Go now and work. No straw will be given to you, but you must deliver the same number of bricks. The foremen of the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble and they said, you shall by no means reduce the number of bricks, your daily task each day. They met Moses and Aaron, who are waiting for them as they came out of the Pharaoh. And they said to them, the Lord look on you and judge, because you have made a stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and have put sword in their hands to kill us. Then Moses turned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you done this evil to these people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh and speak in your name, he has done evil to his people, and you have not delivered your people at all. So Moses is saying, why are you choosing me and telling me to do this? It's only making it harder on the Israelites.
Yeah, that's some deep stuff. They're calling out Pharaoh here, so.
Yeah, so
That's not good.
that is 3 chapters. We read chapters 3, 4, and 5. So look forward in the next stream for us to be starting off at verse 6. So I think we're gonna end the stream there.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you everybody for coming. And we will see you in the next
Skit
one.
Boys out.
Skit Boys out.